My guest today is Ghazaleh Lyari, a successful investment banker who ditched the corporate world in 2008 to establish Ghermez Cupcakes, a premium cupcake brand in Australia. She has 3 stores in Sydney and they've opened up within the last 2 years. Welcome to In Her Shoes.
It's good to see you, Suzi.
I want to talk about raising capital today, especially as it pertains to women-owned businesses. When it comes to raising capital, we know that we can do that to expand, to develop new products, to restructure our companies. What advice did you find yourself most often giving these businesses that were looking for funding?
I think, my specific specialty was in helping companies that are a little bit further down the track than companies like myself right now. So we would do what we would call a mezzanine rounding, which is what you would do in getting yourself ready just before going public. And so at that point, the companies are quite well established. The product is ready to go. They have established clients and reference sites, and they have been able to show a consistent growth path and a very clear path to profitability if they're not already profitable. Well, during the dot-com boom and bust, there were lots of companies that we would take public who were not profitable. Those kind of things don't happen very often these days, as you could appreciate. But it's about having a very clear vision of where the company is going and having some historical track record of growth and being able to sustain that growth with the plan that you can share with the investors. And it wouldn't be much different with the private companies on the smaller side. I mean, you have to have obviously the ability to communicate that what you have has the potential to have a big enough market that would be of interest to the investors. The product that you're coming up with is either very innovative or it's a product that has been there, somebody else has done it, but you have a very distinct way of doing it with a differentiated twist. And that you can show, sustainable growth. I mean, that's the key in it, because obviously every investor gets in it for a return at the end of the day. You have to have a clear end game, what your exit strategy is going to be, whether you're going to sell your business or whatnot. And so once the business owner is comfortable communicating those things, that there is a product or service that differentiated in the marketplace, in the competitive landscape, and that there is a path to growth, sustainable growth that's easily demonstrable, then that's time to take a look at it. And you can do it in different stages. I mean, I know companies who obviously take seed money when you have an idea. There is nothing much more than that. But an investor really cares about the person who's going to execute it. I think your ability to prove that you're experienced enough to execute the vision is just as important as the idea itself. You can't just say, well, I've never done anything in my life. I'm just out of uni, and I think this is going to be brilliant. And maybe there are some investors who do that, but they're far and few between.
And was it that belief that the person could execute, was that one of the main telling factors for the businesses who got funding and those who didn't, or were there other aspects that got them over the line?
I think that aspect is very critical. I mean, you invest in the idea just as much as you invest in the person behind it. So their track record is really, really important. And I've seen that over and over again with private fundings. I mean, you talk to the investors and say, this guy has been there, done this, that, and the other. So it gives them a level of comfort that they can execute in this new environment. And again, at the end of the day, it's the person behind it and the idea. I mean, you have to be in a position to communicate that the idea has foot to stand on and an ability to have sustainable growth.
We really encourage women to get themselves investor ready. You mentioned to me just before we started filming today's episode that you found it to be a very male-dominated industry. I suspect that's the case here as well. But for our women in the audience, what can they best do to get their business, assuming it is in that still startup stage, moving towards being ready for investors?
I think it's really important to understand your numbers, to have systems in place that allow you to kind of look at trends, look at how well you've been doing product by product, how well you've been doing store by store, how your same store growths are tracking over time, and be able to kind of explain anomalies in the financial statements that you're going to have to share with investors. There's always a good reason why there's been dips in certain months or seasons, but being able to kind of get your head around the numbers is really, really important, because that's ultimately what they're interested in, and what systems you have in place to kind of have control over it. If you're not comfortable with the numbers, then get a CFO on board who can get very comfortable and kind of train you through it and guide you through it. So I think it's very critical. It's not just about being able to communicate how great my product is and how mine is better than others. But if you can't describe how you're executing it so that it gets it to profitability and it gets it to a point of sustainable growth, revenue growth year over year, it's a very difficult story to convince an investor in. So understand your numbers, have systems in place, and if you're not comfortable with numbers, get someone on board that is very comfortable with it.
Great. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure.